So the character on the right is the original video game version of the character, and you're like, who is he? What is he? What's his background? Kind of ambiguous, which is probably the smart way to go about it. The character on left, the either blonde or strawberry blonde, blue-eyed guy out of Austrian Central Casting, is the movie version that Druckman put in there. He changed him from this video game version to the character on the left, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christian movie version, as you'll see why in a second. So Neil Druckman makes a Epstein Christian cannibal in The Last of Us because of course he did. It's current year, bigot. Humans are the real monsters. That's the theme of the show. But Druckman thinks it's specifically blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christians who are the real monsters, or whatever, green, or it's either blonde or green, or blonde or strawberry or red or green or blue eyes. Those are your options because they're trying to tell you who the bad guys are. And the bad guys have light hair and light eyes. Not any other group. They ignore all the other groups that are actually doing Malum and Say events. Just focus that little laser pointer on Christians with blue or green eyes and light hair. They should be the focus of all your hatred. And if you watch commercials or TVs or streaming shows, you're very well cognizant of what these people are doing. Except the Christians are not the problem in America or globally. They're the marginalized and oppressed victims of violence. And European people are not the problem anywhere. Usually they're the solution. That's why people are so desperate to live around European people. It's not the magic dirt. It's the magic European people who create nice societies. People like Druckman are the problem. So this show, how dare you say something that's so obviously true? Yeah, when the truth is outlawed, right? So it doesn't bode well for societies. So the show is similar to something like The Mandalorian in that it's something that people are kind of fooled by. They're hoping it's cool and they get into it, and it's not good. It's just relatively good to everything else. It just means that everything else sucks so bad you think it's decent. It's not. You don't have to accept the best of the worst that is still objectively bad, at least in comparison to what shows were trying to do 20 years ago. I mean, things have been bad for a while, but they've crossed into the unwatchable phase, and it's like just getting other people to kind of awaken to that and go, oh, it really is all unwatchable. So this series sucks. So does Mando. In fact, I think everything that's coming out now is going to be horrible. I don't think there's any hope for anything on the horizon out of the mainstream Hollywood, which is going to be rough for the YouTubers, the Comicsgate, the Phantom Menace type of crowd, or, all the other YouTubers, whether you're on the left or right, who are reviewing this kind of stuff. And I guess maybe if you're a left-wing shill and you're watching this stuff and you go, I just love the latest episode of Mando. You look at these people like, what's wrong with you? No, you didn't love it. I mean, you watch it to review it because you made money on the video, but like you didn't love it. I don't think there's... I mean, unless you're like one of the Mary Sue girls who watch this kind of stuff and like Baby Yoda, like, just really, really hard to take sometimes. Anyway, so the thing is, it's going to be rough for that YouTubing section of the world because after a while you realize if everything in Hollywood sucks, then, I mean, there's really kind of difficult to bring a fresh perspective when everything sucks. At some point you realize, oh, there's no point in following any modern Hollywood at all. It's like, well, yeah, you should probably go back to the 40s movies and start reviewing that, start talking about classic noir movies from the 40s and 50s maybe, and do a show that focuses on that because at least those movies were watchable. So Last of Us is a video game from 10 years ago that a degenerate Neil Druckman turned into a series that had a whole episode where two guys sodomize each other for an hour. Was episode 3, which most people are just not into because they're just not into sodomy between not just guys but ugly guys at that. And then to complete the pointless existence, they take pills at the end and they delete themselves because they don't have grandkids and a family. So the nihilist story arc is complete. It starts with sodomy and ends with mutual self-destruction. It's really amazing. Hollywood puts this stuff out there and people just accept this level of the degenerate collapse of society without kind of stepping back and looking at what the message is. And it's like you have to take notes to say, okay, what are they really saying here? And then when you write it down, you look at the show and you go, holy cow, is this where we are in the stage of the collapse? And like, yeah, this is where... Buddy, what do you think they're doing with kids in schools today and those story hours in libraries? Yeah, we're right there, dude. I mean, come on, open your eyes. You can, like, what do you think these shows are telling you? So the series also has, there's a scene where the pox-walked women who are actually in charge of everything, because that's how it usually works. When you have a rebel plan to blow up the Death Star, it's naturally going to be pox-walked women who's planning out the big details. So in episode 8, Druckman, who himself very much hates Christians and Europeans, decides to make the religious guy a Christian who eats people and Epstein's little girls, which is hysterical, because you already had Epstein as a perfect character for the role. I mean, it's a real guy who did not delete himself in prison. You could have played off that island, the celebrity sacrifice to Moloch theme that people were actually doing. I mean, nobody got punished for it, of course, except for Epstein and his partner in the French prison, who actually cameras turned off for him too, and he deleted himself in prison. Weird coinky-dinks that the media just kind of doesn't report on. Anyway, but the thing is, they did have a temple, literally on an island. I mean, all that actually happened, but no, the Hollywood version is you get a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christian preacher, because of course, and the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, but he refers to passages in John and Revelation that justifies him eating people and Epsteining kids. Except that's not in the New Testament, much less in those passages. It's just absurd. It's so on the nose, it's touching the brain. But Druckman has an agenda. An anti-Christian, anti-European agenda. And I mean, if you don't see this stuff by now, it's like you're purposely have your head in the sand. In the game, the character doesn't mention his, here's the two characters sodomizing each other for 45 minutes. The character doesn't mention that it's any kind of religion, and he's actually racially ambiguous, at least in that one image. But of course, that's not good enough. Nuance is not good enough for Druckman. He has to make a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christian character. Because as I mentioned before, they hate Christians and Europeans. That's the goal of Hollywood. And, I wonder when people are finally going to snap and just start talking about this on a larger scale. European cannibalism is actually pretty rare. It was more of an issue with the New World Indians, either for religious human sacrifice or in a harsh winter, they would sometimes eat the elders. And sometimes the babies, if the winter went on long enough and they didn't have enough supplies for winter. But it was pretty rare in Europe, even in or Russia, even in Russia, they've got pretty insane winters also. But the Europeans were pretty good at planning for winter and, more importantly, working together to accomplish goals and having communal living situations when they needed to survive and planning ahead and sharing and cooperation. It's like they were able to do that kind of stuff very well, so that starvation was actually pretty rare. And cannibalism was rare, because even the Wendigo mythology for the New World, I think that was relating to the really long winters up in Canada, or most of America, because it has got some very, very brutal winters. And if you run out of supplies, it's like you look to the elderly. It's like, well, they're your supplies on the hoof. And then if it really goes on, it's like you look to the babies, it's because you can always have more babies, but you gotta have the fertile survival group. The thing is, it was rare in Europe because they were able to cooperate. And the thing is, it is still practiced in some areas of the world even today, which is why a couple decades ago they were having an issue with the prion brain disease. Mad cow would jump from humans to cattle. It's because there were several tribes that still eat some of the dead for religious reasons. So that all that actually happens in present day. But of course, Hollywood's Druckman is not going to. Hey, you're going to race swap the character? You should race swap the character and turn him into a cannibal. Yeah, we're not going to do that. But why not? There actually is cannibalism in some parts of the world. But that's literally practiced today for religious reasons. When they conquer their dead or whatever, they defeat someone in battle, they'll eat parts of them. Yeah, no, we're gonna make them blonde hair, blue eyed. But that doesn't make any sense. And the Christian, you're saying he's quoting Revelation to tell him to be a cannibal, and he's quoting John 4:18 to Epstein kids. None of that makes sense. But Neil Druckman decides to make a Christian out of a Nordic central casting as the cannibal Epstein type. It doesn't have to make sense. He just hates Christians, especially Europeans, obviously. So he's John 4:18 says it gives the Christian the moral high ground to Epstein a kid. No, it doesn't. I mean, none of that. There's nothing in the New Testament. You can read the New Testament yourself. It's like Jesus Christ is known as the Prince of Peace for a reason. None of this makes sense until you look at Druckman, HBO, Hollywood in general. Cultural Bolshevism. There's a reason people are bringing that up more and more. They hate you. Their goal is to destroy everything that makes a stable family, which you start by destroying the stability of religion and the family unit. It's like everything that's going on today with all the stuff with brainwashing kids. Yeah, it's cultural Bolshevism. Oh, that's a far-right dog whistle. Okay, so not wanting to abuse kids is a far-right value. That's right, bucko. Okay, fine. Challenge accepted then. But, I mean, where do you go from there once you say, like, oh, okay, fine, challenge accepted? Oh, but we need to genocide you people for what you might do in the future. But you guys are doing stuff to kids right now. None of your argument makes sense. Anyway, so their goal is to destroy everything that makes a stable nation, which they're doing very well, very, very successfully. See how far along we are on this path to where we're going. So they can turn the nation into a commercial zone, so it's nothing more than, you know, kind of a debt cattle state run by Google and other NGOs. It's like, looks around. Oh, it seems like the quality of life has been falling for the past 100 years, or let's say since 1913, 1914. The Federal Reserve, I think, what were the four industries that were formed in 1913? Federal Reserve, FBI, and then 1914 was the federal taxation to pay for World War I. And you look at the debt from like the past 200 years. Okay. And then, see, I mean, there's a lot more to it, obviously, than that, but it's probably as much as far as you can go on YouTube. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.